A rabbit hears a snap of a twig and is gone before the sound finishes echoing. No hesitation, no thought. Just movement, faster than fear itself could explain. You probably assume this is the worst possible way to live. Always alert, always afraid, always one mistake away from being eaten. The predator, by comparison, seems to have it easy. Power, control, the top of the food chain. Surely that's the better deal. But the real answer is far stranger than that. Because when you actually look at the biology, the psychology, and the evolutionary math, prey animals may be living something closer to a richer, more attuned existence than the predators chasing them. And buried inside that idea is an uncomfortable mirror for the way you live your own life. Let's start with the obvious assumption. Predators are dominant. Prey are victims. This is the story embedded in almost every nature documentary you've ever watched. The lion stalks, the gazelle flees. One animal has agency, the other has fear. But ecologists who study predator-prey dynamics tell a very different story. Researcher Joel Berger, who has spent decades studying how animals perceive danger, found something remarkable when he studied moose populations in regions where wolves had been absent for nearly a century. These moose had lost their fear responses almost entirely. They didn't flee from wolf howls. They didn't react to wolf scent. Their senses had gone quiet, not because they were safe, but because the constant pressure that once sharpened their awareness simply wasn't there anymore, which raises an uncomfortable question. Was the moose actually better off without a predator, or had it lost something essential to what it meant to be fully, vividly alive? Here's where the science gets genuinely strange. Prey animals, across nearly every species studied, show extraordinary sensory capabilities that predators simply don't need to develop. A deer's field of vision spans nearly 310 degrees, almost a full circle, because survival depends on seeing everything all the time. A rabbit's ears can rotate independently, each one scanning a different slice of the world simultaneously. Researcher Daniel Blumstein, who studies what's called the ecology of fear at UCLA, has documented how prey species develop what he calls landscape of fear cognition. This means prey animals build a constantly updating mental map of risk across their entire territory. Every blade of grass, every shadow, every gap between trees gets evaluated and re-evaluated, second by second. That is not a deficit. That is one of the most sophisticated cognitive systems in the animal kingdom. Predators, by contrast, often specialize. A lion's hunting strategy relies on a narrow burst of focused power. It doesn't need to track 300 degrees of surrounding space. It needs to track one thing, the next meal. Researcher Craig Packer, who has studied African lions for over 4 decades, found that lions spend the overwhelming majority of their day, sometimes up to 20 hours, simply resting. Their lives are not constant vigilance. They are long stretches of stillness, punctuated by brief, explosive effort, which means, paradoxically, prey animals are often more cognitively engaged with their environment than the predators hunting them. But there's an even deeper layer to this. Stress physiologist Robert Sapolsky, who has spent decades comparing stress responses across species, makes a crucial distinction that changes everything. For prey animals in the wild, stress is almost always acute, a burst of cortisol when a predator appears, followed by either escape or relief, and then a near-total return to baseline. The nervous system resets. This is fundamentally different from chronic stress, the kind that lingers without resolution. And this is where the mirror turns toward you. Sapolsky's research, drawn largely from his work on baboon populations and later applied to human stress physiology, found that humans are among the only species capable of sustaining stress responses without an actual present threat. A zebra's heart rate spikes when a lion appears and drops the moment it escapes. Your heart rate can spike over an email and stay elevated for hours, sometimes days. You can relive a threat that happened years ago simply by remembering it. The zebra being chased by a lion may be, biologically speaking, less stressed than you are, sitting in traffic thinking about a conversation you haven't had yet. This is the strange inversion at the heart of the question. Prey animals live inside immediate, resolvable danger. Their fear has an off switch. Yours often doesn't. So, what does prey actually gain from this constant vigilance, beyond simply surviving? Heightened sensory richness. A world perceived in extraordinary granular detail. Researcher Suzanne Simard's work on forest ecosystems, while focused on plant communication, revealed a broader truth echoed across prey biology. Organisms under constant low-level threat often develop the most intricate sensing networks in their ecosystem. Prey animals are not diminished by their vigilance. They are, in a sense, more awake to the world than almost anything else in it. Predators, meanwhile, often live in a kind of comfortable narrowness. Apex predators frequently show less behavioral flexibility, less environmental responsiveness, because evolution simply didn't require it of them. When you're at the top of the food chain, the pressure to constantly adapt, sense, and respond quietly disappears. Which brings us to the deepest layer of this question. What does it actually mean to dominate an ecosystem versus to be fully woven into it? Apex predators, despite their power, are often ecologically fragile. Remove the wolf from Yellowstone and the entire system destabilizes, a phenomenon researcher William Ripple has documented extensively. But the destabilization doesn't happen because the wolf was essential to controlling deer numbers alone. It happens because the constant pressure wolves exerted on deer behavior, not just deer population, kept the entire landscape dynamic. Without that pressure, deer became complacent. Overgrazing followed, riverbanks eroded, songbird populations collapsed. The fear itself, it turns out, was holding the ecosystem together. The prey's vigilance wasn't a tax on their existence. It was a structural pillar of the world around them. So, return to the rabbit, frozen mid-leap at the snap of a twig. It is not living a smaller life than the fox that hunts it. It is living a life saturated with sensory information the fox will never need to process. Every rustle matters. Every shift in wind direction matters. Every flicker of shadow could be everything or nothing. And the rabbit's entire nervous system is built to know the difference in milliseconds. Maybe the predator's life is simpler. Maybe the prey's life is richer. And maybe somewhere in between those two truths is a question worth carrying with you the next time your own heart spikes over something that isn't actually chasing you anymore. The zebra's fear ends when the lion gives up. The question is whether yours does too.